Hello besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori if you're new. We are talking about my February TBR. We're also going to be talking through Romantasyathon TBR. And then the second half of this video will be bullet journal setup. So I hope they're excited. I love February. I love a month that celebrates love. I also love that it's Aquarius season because Aquarius are some of my favorite people in the whole entire world. Valentine's Day is a big slay for me. I love Valentine's Day. I think that it's the perfect excuse to spoil the people and like acknowledge how much love is in your life. And I'm gonna stop being cheesy now. Let's talk about some books. We might start with Romantasyathon. I think that might make the most sense, and then we'll take it from there. Romantasyathon is the readathon that I host in February. It is for reading fantasy, romance, or romantasy. It is February 15th to the 22nd, and I will leave the announcement video in the description box below. You can read as many or as few prompts as you would like in this. I'm kind of doubling up on some books because I don't want to overwhelm myself. In a typical reading week, I average around like 3 books a week. I'm having my Romantasyathon TBR be 4 books. This is what we're starting with, I guess is how we will phrase it. So for my who to bring prompt and for my weapon prompt, I'm going to be reading The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. This is a new author to me, and this is the first book in a series. I think it's called the Crucible series. As I understand it, the gods pick almost like a hero to represent them in these games that they play. Our main character has never been favored by the gods, far from it, thanks to Zeus. But Hades chooses our main character to be their hero. This is the first time that the king of the underworld has entered the Crucible, the deadly contest that gods hold to determine a new ruler to sit on the throne of Olympus. But instead of fighting their own battles, the gods name mortals to compete in their stead. Honestly, it's the line, "And why does my heart trip every time he says I'm his?" Any book that has Hades as a love interest, I'm usually obsessed with, so I cannot wait to read this. Then a new release that's coming out in February that I'm going to be using for my what to wear and my background prompts. These ones are very straightforward. What to wear, I'm picking a book with a red cover so that I get to wear red to the Romantasyathon Starfall Ball. And then for my background, I would like to be a witch. So I'm reading Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This first book had me in a chokehold. The fact that this is a duology, it's the final book. It's a very highly anticipated release for me. It comes out during Romantasyathon, and I plan to snag it from the bookstore right away and start reading it literally immediately. It's so suspenseful. Like, it's just such a suspenseful, high stakes fantasy romance. I think that the witches in the first book were super interesting, but I'm excited to learn more. I feel like we didn't get a lot of witchiness in the first book. So I'm hoping that the second book we get to explore that and the magic system a bit more. And the first one left off on such a cliffhanger. I cannot wait to have this book in my little clutches. And for my trope, I have been meaning to reread this book, and I just haven't gotten to it in January. So in February, I'm hoping to do a reread of Heavenly Bodies by Amani Aru. I also have read the indie version of this, but I haven't read the trad pub version, so I think that it will be exquisite. It's kind of a celestial-inspired fantasy romance. I don't know. There's 2 tropes that I could use this book for. So I think I need to decide what that's going to be like while I'm reading it. This is a world ruled by stars, cruel and merciless gods, and Alara has been cursed by fate. She has a prophecy that's kind of playing out in her life. A prophecy promises she will fall for a star, but it will kill them both. She has to escape to sort of an enemy kingdom to take asylum because her realm is under attack. And so she goes to Helios, the kingdom of light, where she strides straight into the arms of an enemy prince. And if this fan art doesn't tell you everything that you need to know, I don't know what will. It's so good. They're so good. And then my bonus prompt, I'm going to be reading Glow of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I did get a hard copy edition of this book because even though they're on Kindle Unlimited, and I probably will still read it on my Kindle because I've been obsessed with my Kindle lately, I just needed to like own this physical book to, I don't even know, like keep this book forefront of mind. I keep just picking other books over picking up this one. I think it's because the first book, Spark, wasn't my favorite, and it made me not hesitant to continue with the series, but it just like knocked it down on my priority list. But everyone says that Glow of the Everflame is their favorite book of the series. And so I said, I'm buying this physical book. We are still in the mindset of like doing a good job of reading our physical TBR. So we're going to do Glow. And I'm using this as the prompt, saw this on socials, because everybody and their mother posts about this book on socials, and I just need to get my priorities straight. So that is my Romantasyathon TBR. The other new release books that I cannot wait to get to in February that I'm planning on reading are Iron and Embers by Helen Scher. She is my absolute freaking queen. I love the Blood and Steel series. I love Slaying the Shadow Prince. This is a kind of spin-off series of characters that we've met from the Blood and Steel series, but it's their romance, and it did officially get released in January, but I haven't had a chance to get to it yet. It comes out right at the end of January as well, so I pre-ordered this book. I'm very excited for it to come in. I think I also have a second special edition coming in at some point as well, which I'm very excited for. I need to like catch my breath after talking about that book. I'm like just over the moon. I'm so excited. We already talked about Rebel Witch. The last new release that I have is Where Shadows Bloom. That's coming out in February, that I cannot wait for, by another author who has just the most lush, incredible writing style. One of my favorite writing styles ever. Where Shadows Bloom is a sapphic YA fantasy romance, I'm gonna call it. Yes, fantasy romance. Our main character, Ophelia, has lived her life dreaming of entering, I'm not good at French, Le Chateau Enchanté, the best I could do. The best, I really tried there, I'm so sorry. It's a mysterious court of the God's Blessed King Leo, where the shadow monsters that roam Ophelia's home never trespass. And then we have Lope, who is Ophelia's knight, and it's going to be their romance. I love a bodyguard romance. I love a knight romance. That's what One Dark Window delivered for me, and I have been obsessed ever since. Like, I literally cannot stop. And so they are thrust into a journey that will lead them into the heart of darkness, haunting their home, the dazzling, deceptive Chateau Enchanté itself, a mesmerizing daydream with a subtle edge of darkness that will leave you utterly unable to put it down. I loved Catherine Bakewell's Flower Heart because it was so atmospheric, and then also the love story that she wrote was so heartwarming. And so I'm curious if this is going to be another heartwarming romance. It does tend to lean on the side of like feel-good romance, I would assume. She gives a Margaret Rogerson type writing style. I cannot wait, especially sapphic. Like, please, I'm already so in love. Then absolutely not a new release, but I have been reading the Farseer trilogy on my Patreon, Silly Goose Lane, which is always linked down below. We're currently buddy reading the Farseer trilogy. So we started with Assassin's Apprentice in January. In February, we're going to be reading Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb, continuing with this. I totally did not realize that the second book, I think, is like 700, a little over 700 pages. And then the third book is pretty close to 800. Did not realize that at all. But I was loving the audiobook for the first one. I'm going to continue kind of immersive reading, but like listening to the audiobook for this second one. And I had to pick up a physical copy because they republished these into the floppiest paperbacks I've ever seen in my whole life. They're so floppy. It's beautiful. It's beautiful and gorgeous. So I did pick up Royal Assassin, and then I also picked up the third book as well, so that they are just ready to go. And I have been listening to these audiobooks on Everend. This is a series where we follow our main character, Fitz. We meet him in the first book when he's 6 years old, and from what I understand through all of Robin Hobb's books, we just follow him throughout his literal whole entire life. Like, we meet him again later when he's 40, again later when he's 60, and there's magic in this world. It's very political. There's a lot of drama, and she also rips out your heart, which I've experienced so far twice in only the first book. So it's a good thing we're reading heavily fantasy romance in February, because it's going to balance out the pain of Royal Assassin. And then I guess a couple other hopefuls that I have that are a little bit like shorter or just very like popcorn fast reads that I'm hoping to get to. Fate of the Sun King. This is a series that I have been reading quite slowly. I did read the first, what am I on? What is that? I read the first two books very quickly. I would describe these as kind of popcorn read fantasy romance books. So I'm hoping that if I just need a really fast-paced, quick, fun read, I will have Fate of the Sun King to pick up. And then the other one that I don't know that it's going to be fast-paced per se, but Everlong by R. Rada. I read her Peaches and Honey series. I know that's not what it's called, but Peaches and Honey and Pits and Poison. That was a duology that broke my heart and put it back together. I gave them both 5 stars. I cried reading both of those books, and I'm not typically a crier at books. Like, they were just so good, so Addie LaRue coded, but really unique in their own way, and her writing style just sucked me right in. And I'm hoping to do the same thing with Everlong. It's another shorter book. I think that she likes to write and pace her books to be about 300 to 350 pages. I just really appreciate an author who delivers such a beautiful story in a very concise way. Everlong is a story that follows her version of what I think is a vampire. She loves writing about immortal beings because Peaches and Honey, we get immortal beings. Everlong is about a woman who can't remember the day that she I forget how it's phrased, but came back to life essentially. And she feels very lost in the world. She sits on a park bench to wait out her nights, and she just draws. And then she ends up meeting someone who comes to sit on this park bench with her, and they connect, and they're starting to realize that she is losing her memories, and it's just a whole thing. And one thing about our Rada, she's going to deliver a very sad but meaningful and impactful with some deep life lessons, to be honest. She's just so good at delivering such a powerful punch in her romances. So I'm kind of counting it as fantasy romance, even though it's not the most magical world. It's not the most magical atmosphere, but it does have supernatural beings in it. And so I'm kind of throwing that in there. Not that I don't know if I'll read it for Romantasyathon or not, but that's just how I'm classifying it in my head. So I think that is the final TBR for February. If you have any of these books on your TBR, please let me know in the comments down below. If there's any book that you're super, super excited for that I didn't mention, please let me know down below. If you already have your Romantasyathon TBR sorted, figured out, planned, if you have your bullet journal figured out, let me know as well, bestie. I want to hear all the things. And now let's get into my bullet journal setup. My February spread is very list oriented. Not that my other spreads aren't, but my tactic going into this month was, number one, to not forget about the new releases that I'm really excited about, because I don't know, lately new releases haven't been stressing me out. I've been really excited to read them immediately, and I thought I was going to be that way with Onyx Storm. I thought it was really going to stress me out, but everyone's excitement just flooded into me as well, and it made it so exciting and fun to read that book at the same time as everybody else. So I wanted my new releases to be front of mind, which we've already talked about all of the books on these lists. And then for my other TBR, it's quite long, but I was going with the method of I would rather have a really long TBR of books that I can pull from, because lately I've been finding it difficult to decide what I want to read next. It's not that there's not books I'm excited to get to and whatever, but making the decision has been difficult. And so I'm okay, this is the massive list of books that if I'm at a loss for what I want to read next, this is just the big list that I can pull from. And then I did make a little goals section for my reading goals. I did this in January as well, and they're not massive goals, right? I have my annual goals of read 100 books and stuff like that, the bigger goals, but these ones are just little bite-sized goals of what I want to focus on for the month. So this month I put in a new reading routine. I don't want to say struggling because that's so abrasive and I'm not struggling to read, but I don't have a good reading routine. Now that I've been streaming on Twitch in the mornings, I find that my mornings aren't geared towards reading anymore. They're usually either streaming mornings or running errands and getting everything done before I have to log into work for the day. And then at night, I've been really tired lately and I've been actually good about sticking to a bedtime. So all positive things here. It's not complaining. But then at night before bed, I'm I'll read before bed. And then I end up falling asleep. So I'm trying to shuffle things around and just see how I can better fit reading into my daily routine, because again, it's not for lack of wanting to read. I really want to read. It's just carving out that time, and over time your schedule changes and it shifts, and you just have to reshuffle everything around to make sure that you're still prioritizing and doing the things that you want to and that you need to do. On the right hand side, I'm going to have my little reading graphs that I do every month, and then I put my buddy read, like Patreon buddy read for the Farseer trilogy. And then I also have a spot for our Who Did This To You book club pick, which we haven't finalized yet, but I think it's going to be Onyx Storm for February, because that's what we had said. Like, Onyx Storm released so late in January that we didn't want to make it our January book, but that way, like, people who have already read it can go in and like chit chat, and then the people who haven't read it yet can go in and chit chat as well. So I think, don't quote me on that, I will post on like in the book club and then on my Insta stories as well to confirm. Then we're gonna do my Romantasyathon spread. I'm keeping this very just book cover focused because I like the way it looks. It's very clean, it's very easy, and then I'm gonna pop my star rating underneath each book cover after I read it. And then I'm keeping the right side of this page completely blank because I want it to be used for my picture collage at the end. So like all of these prompts are gonna correspond to a picture of like what I'm gonna wear, who my date's gonna be, blah blah blah, all of that fun stuff. So that's going to be for my little collage at the end of the readathon. And then this is the final flip through. I hope that you enjoyed, besties. I will catch you in the comments, and I will see you in my next one. Toodles!